So I'm Jessica John. I'm the, sorry, this is very loud.
Yeah,
The
it's a little.
Chief Strategy Officer for Regent Seven Seas Cruises. I know I spoke to a lot of you earlier this morning. We're an ultra-luxury cruise line, and in my remit is global marketing, strategy, business and brand, and then also communications.
Hello, I'm Peter Spartin. I head up commercial development here in the United States for the Aston Martin Formula One team. And I've been with the team now 4 years, so I've seen it evolve from a relatively small operation to where we are today, and looking forward to a lot of what's coming down the line.
Awesome, guys. Is that too much, or is this better?
Okay,
You know, I've worked at Esquire. I was at a number of brands that worked in the luxury space, and AccuWeather, we're making our way there to collaborate between two amazing luxury brands that you represent. What was the inspiration behind it?
I'll let you go, Wes, 'cause Peter was the brainchild.
So I've had an interesting background between consulting, technology, marketing, advertising, sales across a variety of brands, including which a few years back now worked at Norwegian Cruise Line, which is now the holding company of Regent Seven Seas as well. And about maybe 2 years ago now, we were heading to Miami, and I was like, you know what, there's a lot of synergies here that I can see. Let's call up some old friends and invite them out. And I think that's really what started our conversations, and we took it from there.
Yeah, and then when you think about from the Regent perspective, you know, my team had actually, before I joined Regent, had started these initial conversations, and when they came and talked to me about it, it was very new to us. We hadn't done anything of this scale in terms of partnerships. We've done some smaller niche partnerships in certain regions and certain areas, but we never really did anything on a global basis that had this type of reach. So it was really interesting to dive a little bit deeper into it to understand, hey, do our brands really fit together, right? Because my initial thought when I thought about Aston Martin Formula One, I guess I didn't understand the demographic completely, and I thought maybe, you know, we're talking about young men maybe who might be interested in this brand. And when we actually looked into the data, I was, one, extremely surprised at how many women are so into Formula One. I was surprised at how affluent the actual broader Formula One base is. And then for Aston Martin Formula One, they had this great mix of being this young, hungry new team that wanted to get better, wanted to invest, and really wanted to move forward in new and innovative ways. But they had that Aston Martin association of being this really rich heritage brand that had so much legacy and had so much potential for brand elevation. So for us, being associated with a brand like that really helped us in a lot of the things that we talked about. I talked about an awareness problem for cruise earlier. You know, it doesn't hurt to be associated with someone like Aston Martin F1 to really pique someone's interest.
Yeah, absolutely. You said experience, and one of the themes I've taken out of today is experience, right? Creating that luxury experience for you know, consumers and individuals. Within that idea of experience, how do the brands complement each other?
Yeah, I think overall, so when we started talking about a partnership, the thing that was probably the least interesting to me was the logo on the car and the logo on the shirts. They're very valuable. They're very, very, very valuable overall. But for a luxury brand, it was really about those experiences. So actually our campaign, when we started putting together what does our partnership look like, it was about once-in-a-lifetime experiences and once-in-a-lifetime moments. So we really wanted to make sure that for our guests we had these exclusive experiences, whether it be driving experiences like trackside experiences. With the Paddock Club, we bring our guests there, we bring our travel partners there. We're actually doing a Spotlight, which is a themed voyage next summer. So it's a 10-day sailing that's going to be in partnership with Aston Martin Formula One. We're going to have Pedro de la Rosa as the host for that sailing. We're doing things like master classes. Our guests are really into enrichment. So they want to understand the behind the scenes. So we're going to do workshops of design and innovation, the technology, the engineering that goes behind it, and they're going to get that backdoor glimpse into what really is a Formula One team, what goes into it. One of the kind of tie-ins that we saw right away when we started talking about the team was, we have this incredible crew on board our ships, and they all work behind the scenes to put together this perfect product. And we're always, we just launched a campaign called In Pursuit of Perfection, which is what we try to do every day. And there's this whole working machine behind us that tries to do that. And it's the same thing, right? They have their drivers up there, but there's all these people back at the factory that are doing all of these little things, like all these tiny little pieces that come together to build that bigger experience. And that's why, instead of just the experience on track, is actually what our guests would be interested in. So trying to bring them behind the scenes there.
That's awesome. Where do I sign up? Peter?
Yeah, I'll bring it back to where this started again. And, you think about this diverse platform that Formula One offers. On one end of the spectrum, great hospitality and experiential element for VIP guests. There were some obvious synergies there. On the global advertising and awareness side, logos in the car, that's sort of a potential fit for all types of companies. In the middle, there's the IP usage. There is content development and marketing, social media. There's really a plethora of opportunities that can go really deep. And one of the things we value as a team is how we really work with our partner to figure out what they really need and what's really going to drive results for them. So we actually can get into the data and did get into the data with Regent across the team back in the UK, and we did go deep on some of that. But we really started exploring where's the fit and how and why, and those conversations really started, becoming very creative. And ultimately, we honed in on certain things that they wanted to get out of it from year 1, year 2, and on, including the Spotlight Cruise. And some of the intricacies of the cruise industry is really what drove some of that. But we started out with these conversations of exploration and trying to sort of create a partnership that worked for both of us, and particularly what they wanted to achieve. And I think that's really what ended up sort of being maybe the culmination was the Spotlight Cruise.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, we were thinking, maybe we'll paint the ship green or something fun like that. But these things really started off with, looking at this F1 platform and its opportunities and picking out a few things that are probably obvious, but really talking from there and going deep.
Yeah, to build off of that a little bit, for a luxury brand, we're very, very focused on, bottom of the funnel analytics, right? And so our CEO of Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings was the president and CEO of NCL, which is our mass market brand. And so when you bring a partnership opportunity to him, you can't just tell him it's about awareness, right? He's like, yeah, what about the bookings? What are the bookings? And Peter and Shergel and the team had probably heard me say, I need to tie bookings to everything 1,000,000 times. And so that's where, given our specific KPIs and the things that we needed to achieve, we spent a lot of time with their analytics team, with their partnership team to think about, okay, we do have these goals on broad-based awareness, but how can we build in assets into this partnership that are easily trackable, that are more tangible for our specific company and our specific goals? So something like the Spotlight Voyage was a great way to achieve that, because you're going on that, you can track where they're coming from, and they're going on that sailing for Aston Martin Formula One, right? So there's a direct one-for-one booking that I can attribute to that. We also got really creative with our travel partner distribution. So some of our Paddock Club tickets, for example, we use them as sweepstakes. Like our top producing travel partners for a certain period would get those tickets. So we're able to track that, right? Because we can see, is that travel partner driving more bookings than the average person in their channel? So there is a lot more analytics than I think you're typically used to in a luxury partnership, especially one of this scale. But that's what was so great about them, right? They worked with us on what we needed in that sense.
Yeah, there's really no sponsorship template for a Spotlight Cruise, right? We're probably the first. I think we are, but these ideas come up, and then you have to really sell them internally, not just say, yeah, it seems like a great idea. But this also brings to surface the fact that you don't really dabble in sponsorships, much less in sport. And we do have a lot of partners that really are in that scenario. It's the first time in sports, or it's the first time as a partnership. And it's really a unique opportunity for many brands that are looking to leverage this really diverse platform and figuring out how that can fit into their needs. Ultimately, F1 is really a cultural event. As we sort of mentioned before, 24 times a year, 20 countries around the world. Not all our partners are activating in all those areas. Mostly there's 4 or 5 key areas, if even that. And you can't really create a partnership template that fits all. At least we don't, and I think that's sort of a great example of where we got.
Yeah, when I looked at this partnership, I think one of the great things for me is it kind of felt a little bit like a unicorn, because I divided it into 3 areas where it has the sponsorship elements, which have those kind of wide scale awareness type of play. But then it felt like a true partnership too, where there's this reciprocal, let's create experiences together. And then on top of that, then you got celebrity brand ambassadors, right? Where you have Fernando and Lance and people who are really out there and connected to the teams. And then I'd add a fourth one on top of that, where you have the Aston Martin Car Brand Association, where we've, Stefano had mentioned earlier, where we've been able to tap into some of the experiences there. So it was this, you can have this one thing and get all of these different areas from it, where that felt like it was a maximization of, my team's resources. We have a very small global team. We can't do 20, 30 partnerships. So when we pick one, we wanted to make sure that you can kind of squeeze as much juice out of it as you can.
We tend to try to bring potential partners to a race to see it, because you really do have to see some of these experiences and the breadth and depth. And interesting enough, Jessica was selling in the idea internally, having not been to a race. So it was, I would say, an interesting situation for us. But to that point, we did bring her. We were in Miami, and we had a track days experience with Aston Martin, Lagonda, who provide cars, and we bring partners to race around a track in Miami. We do that in Miami, we do that in Silverstone, we do that a few times a year, and that experience is probably the first one you saw on the ground, and how we could bring something to life, right?
Yeah, definitely for our guests, right? And I was able to go to Austin, so midway through the process of when we were doing this, I got to see the Austin Grand Prix, and I only went for Saturday, and it still was, as soon as you walked into the room, you can kind of start seeing all these different possibilities that were there. So I went back, and our CEO does still call this the partnership that Jessica forced me to do. But now I can very much say that it's successful, so he will start taking credit for it soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, Jessica, earlier you mentioned tangibles, right? Creating a marketing strategy around 2 iconic luxury brands where it makes sense to the right audience, right? What platforms and what strategies did you collaborate on that made sense and that have been successful?
Yeah, so I think we've tried to maximize it across all of our channels. So on digital, we've done some work there. We've done some connected TV during races, for example. We've targeted people when they're in certain areas. In print advertising, we've gone into new publications. So for example, Rob Report is something that we haven't done before, but we thought that was a good opportunity for us to advertise in there. And then we're thinking about things like direct mail even at this point, right? Do we send to a select group of clients to be able to show them and showcase the partnership? And then organic social is another one that we've obviously partnered with. I would say when we first started, we weren't getting it quite right? We were just having static social posts. It just didn't feel like it was driving the energy and the excitement that I wanted to bring to the brand there. And so again, another thing that the teams had been working on, our social media team with theirs, had been working on for a few months to put together, like, how do we create something more authentic, right? Let's focus on these moments. Let's focus on getting some behind the scenes, more dynamic footage. And so I think we've made some pretty significant progress there, but it's like you said earlier, it's not a one size fits all. So It's very much something that we continue to test and figure out what works or doesn't work.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think Kate mentioned this on our team, that we have sort of an in-house agency, and we sit down and we create a strategy together, a brand house or a brand strategy ultimately. And that really is what we kind of went back to at some point. We said, look, the social media is sort of not feeling right, and let's go back to what we're trying to achieve here. And for a cruise line, it's getting both new customers and existing customers back through many channels, as Jessica mentioned, including travel agencies and all that. So it's not a straightforward, we're going to do, a few things and it's going to work better. It's really about trying to think about the opportunities across all these things and how our assets and our engine behind the scene can help support those channels.
Awesome. I'm going to go back to experience. The collaboration and the audience that you're trying to reach. How does the collaboration enhance the experience for both F1 fans and for cruise passengers?
I can give you a good example of when we first launched the partnership. One of the things that we did was we wanted to launch it in a really big way. Like, let's figure out a way that we can explain to someone how these two brands can really fit together well. So we actually did our newest ship is called Seven Seas Grandeur. So we did a sweepstakes called the Grandeur Prix. And we tied together a trip to Imola to see the Grand Prix in Imola, have this 5-star experience at a wonderful hotel, get to see the race, be in the Aston Martin Paddock Club, and then go on a 10-night Regent Seven Seas cruise.
Did you paint the ship green?
We did not paint. We photoshopped it for some of the marketing, but it was like, again, like to get that full service experience where you get to experience a destination, you get something really cool that you've never had before, and then we bring you on the ship to be pampered and to have that experience. So that's one of the things that we've done.
Yeah, for us, the brand association does go two ways, right? We think about our partners and what that will mean to the market out there, and Regent was a really nice fit from that level. We were just recently at the Austin Grand Prix, and Regent was offering another sweepstakes sort of prize. Now, we don't just sit there and advertise it through our VIP customers, but we've really nicely integrated that into a sort of premium luxury space with our guests. And that really creates some buzz. I mean, you might be invited by a corporate entity to sort of attend this race. You know, you could walk away with a $10,000-$20,000 experience at the end of the day as well. So these things do really work both ways. And, you know, we try to come up with ideas that really fit, not just, hey, give me your business card and, you know, you might win something. It's, you know, how do we build this into the weekend experience and the racing experience and so on and so forth.
And I'm sorry. I was going to say the spotlight is a really good example of that, because from both ends you could see how an Aston Martin fan would love to be on a ship with Pedro and get to meet him and hear about the behind the scenes. And then the traditional Regent cruiser gets to have a different experience. Maybe they've sailed on that ship or that itinerary because they're a seasoned cruiser, but this is a new way that you can sail, right? So bringing that together kind of has the benefits on both ends, where they can offer their guests something, we can offer, or their fans something, and we can offer our guests something.
Yeah, it's like going to the Masters and the Super Bowl in one weekend or something. So you mentioned Rob Report and different, partners that you want to leverage for the right audience, right? In the digital space, is that challenging? And how do you use the digital space and the social space to broadcast and enhance the partnership?
You guys do more about social, but I think we talked about a little bit earlier. We do some things just to tie it in. It is a little bit more challenging, right, until you find the right thing. And, you know, it's for us, digital is a big portion of our business, but it's still something we're trying to figure out how to work really well. But definitely in the social space, I think we've thought about influencers. How can we use influencers to kind of introduce this and really amplify it a little bit more as well?
Which is exactly kind of one of the early things we did is we I was going to say in a contract somewhere there's a number of social posts or something to that effect, but really we found the opportunity to have to record Pedro. I think it was actually in Miami. And we used him as sort of our influencer to get the word out there to his fan base and our broader base. And, you know, our social media numbers can approach 20 million depending on how you include or exclude some of our drivers, and Aston Martin adds another 10, 12 million to that as well. So we really think creatively how to leverage some of our network, and Pedro in this case was the right fit and the right way to use an influencer to sort of get the word out.
Yeah, those influencers, I'm in the weather space, AccuWeather, and we have natural influencers because everyone's posting their pictures of sunsets, right? Can you expand on the how important the influencers are and the talent that both brands have at your disposal to amplify the message and connect with audiences?
I think it just brings a level of authenticity. It brings a level of them being able to get a glimpse into the experience, right? So we talked a little earlier too about, a product is one single thing. You can show them a product. An experience has to be brought to life in a different way. That's very, very hard to do in static media, right? And so when you get to bring an influencer, you can actually show that behind the scenes. Like, yes, I'm telling you it's a driving experience or a paddock club experience. What does that really mean, right? So having that driving experience, for example, until you see, like, if you're able to video it, our president of our brand was behind the wheel doing 160 miles an hour, and she came back and she was telling everyone about it. And we're like, no, you guys don't understand, like, the feeling that you got, the excitement that you got there. With Aston Martin on the car brand side, we've done something where we've actually brought together some of their dealership clients to be able to visit our ships and get a lunch there. And then we've had some of our guests be able to get into an Aston Martin and drive to a Michelin-starred restaurant and come back. So we built a video around that and some content around that we were able to share. And just having that type of, oh, wow, that's what that experience actually means, is really garnered a lot of questions. It's almost to the point that, the previous panel was making about, we're like, okay, but all of you can't get that experience, right? This is still an exclusive experience. It's not available for every single guest here. But again, it just brings them a little bit behind the scenes there.
I have 1,000 followers on Twitter if you need an influencer.
And then I know something else that, the Pedro video sparked for me is we had our internal global sales conference just a few weeks ago, and we realized we had Fernando actually record a video for us, for our internal team, and our 2025 strategy was called Accelerate. That's what we've all been rallying around. So it worked really, really well as an F1 themed tie-in. And so we had Fernando make this video and really talk about the tie-ins between our teams and really got everyone amped up. We had a mannequin with a driver's suit and a helmet, and the amount of like innovation it drove with our team. Everybody felt cohesive. Everybody felt like they could do something different, and it just kind of added this element that for our internal team was absolutely fantastic, right? Because it actually just drove them to have more loyalty even internally to the brand. I think our manager of partnerships was from one of our sister brands, and I'm 99% sure he signed up and asked for this job when the Formula One partnership was announced, because he had never expressed any interest before, and then all of a sudden he was like, yeah, I would like to work for Regent, please. So there was a lot of that was going on internally. I mentioned earlier our lawyers were like, which one of us can do this, because they thought they were going to get tickets or something. So it was just a very unifying almost partnership for us.
I can't even imagine the legal work that went into it.
Wasn't too bad. Yeah.
Yeah, zero. We can give them
Yeah. Peter, anything to expand on there?
You asked about influencers in digital. One thought that comes to mind is we definitely have our drivers and our driver ambassadors and F1 Academy now. So there's a big team of sort of opportunities on our end, but we even think sometimes more broadly. So on the Spotlight Cruise, we're going to have a technical person to be announced, I think, right? But that's the type of content that's not typical, but they have clientele that do want to know about, the engine and the mechanics and the chassis and the aerodynamics in Formula One. So there's a lot of deep content, and I think we've done things with our partners, for example, on LinkedIn. Our commercial director will, interview and interviewed for various reasons. And, it's probably the less obvious ones, but depending on the target audience and the clientele and where they live, LinkedIn is maybe a better channel in many cases for someone like a Regent or other partners.
So both brands are international brands and are reaching people across the globe. What are the most important markets that you are both going after globally?
So we are a global brand, but the predominantly North American focus. So 75 to 80% of our guest base is North American. Beyond that, the UK, Europe, Australia, those are big markets for us. But we're always looking to grow, right? And that was another aspect of this partnership that worked really well, because they had a growing U.S. population, so our current target market was being tapped, but then also in other areas like Spain was a big one for us, probably because of Fernando as well. Like every guest that we had from Spain, every travel partner, the minute we announced this partnership, were pouncing on us, right? Because it was, we saw an actual uptick in the presence there. And it's great for us because those are markets where we don't have a huge presence. We have a smaller sales footprint or a smaller marketing footprint. So something like this delivers like an 3x return, right, on something like that, because we don't have to make the same level of investment. So it's definitely something that Formula One has been such a global sport. And again, being a destination and a travel company, you have this unique already, you have 24 different Super Bowls that you're getting around the world in all these different places. There's such a natural, beautiful tie-in to, we go to all these places, right? We go to Monte Carlo. You'll be able to do that. You'll be able to go to all these places, and that's what we bring to the table, right? To be this travel experience company, and it just ties in really beautifully with the fact that they are global.
Yeah, so obviously the United States is a massively growing market, and it's the location of a lot of brands that are either currently in or looking to explore Formula One and the teams and so on and so forth. And Team USA here that do things like this. This is sort of one of the ways that we think sort of more strategically about how do you really approach a relatively new market to Formula One. And again, thank you Netflix for a lot of that, but it still takes a lot of education, especially in the C-suite level, in the marketing communities. People have heard about it, and I would say that in the United States there's a lot of, at least in this world of sports, there's a lot of NFL, NBA, and then everyone else, right? F1 is sometimes categorized as the everyone else, and if you look at TV metrics and so on and so forth, you might sort of lump it in as is, but it does carry 24 Super Bowl level events, and for companies that are looking to have an impact and get the value out of their budgets, this is a cultural experience that transcends sports and goes into other things like luxury and fashion and other categories that make sense and provide synergy. So it does become a conversation for newer brands that don't necessarily want to go associate with terrible teams like the Patriots and and the Red Sox
or the Yankees.
Celtics, put them.
I didn't say Celtics.
Sorry, I'm a Dodgers fan. Everyone.
But for there's 3 races in the United States. There's Montreal. There's Mexico. So now in North America, there's a really strong platform. As mentioned, a lot of our partners, or many partners, aren't going to activate in every region across the world. But we do see a lot that think about North America as a firm enough footprint to step into the sport. And whether it's future expansion or other territories that maybe have a lesser presence, but it could still be important and take value from this. Those are conversations that we have literally every day.
Yeah, we do pick the markets that match up. So we will invest more heavily in the certain Grand Prix and do Paddock Club activations where we see either we want to grow or we have the most guests there. But there's so many options that it allows us to kind of have that flexibility to say, hey, here's the 8 Grand Prix that this year we want to be able to focus on more. So we definitely match up a little bit there.
Yeah, Peter, you mentioned, ratings around the Super Bowl and the World Series, Los Angeles versus New York. The F1 ratings probably aren't there, but the destination experience is there, and I think that's where the value is, right? There's 3 million people that descend on Austin or Miami or Las Vegas.
Yeah, on the ground, Austin has, someone asked me this earlier, 400,000 people a day. Like, that's a massive event. It makes a Super Bowl look pretty small. I think the stats last year when the Super Bowl was in Vegas and the race was there, F1 was bringing like 2 or 3x the amount of business to the local area than the Super Bowl was. Just taking a step back, there's 800 million Formula One fans. The TV coverage is 1.5, 1.6 billion. So it makes the NFL look small, frankly. Yeah. And when 60, 70 million people watch a race globally, like that's impactful. Even if it's not necessarily your primary market, you can get that value. You basically don't pay for it, right?
Right.
To some degree.
So I don't know how much time we have. 2 minutes. Any thought around F1 experience around destinations where your cruise customers are going, where they can actually experience getting in the cockpit and driving the car?
getting in and driving the car. I don't know what we're not.
Or
doing
is there too much liability there? It's like
then the lawyers would be very involved.
That would be the paperwork that we need.
I'm just thinking about me. Like,
Maybe not them driving, but hot laps, for example, you can potentially do with a professional driver, and then the guest is in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
Is something definitely we could do.
Yeah, the track day experience is you drive
Yeah,
Aston
you
Martins.
do. That's
with
sick.
a professional
Yeah.
driver.
Guys, thank you so much. Real pleasure.